Hello everyone and welcome back to Southern Wealth. I hope you guys are doing very well. If you do enjoy the content, please consider dropping that like and subscribe. As you guys know, it's the only thing that I ask. Now, as you guys know, I've been away. I've been in. I had a bachelor party over over the weekend, and unfortunately, I'm no longer in my 20s. So that means I came back Sunday evening. So no way, no video. And on Monday, I was very tired, so I didn't record, so that's why I'm doing it today. Tomorrow I'm gonna go on family vacation, so I'm gonna go to a different continent from where I am today. I'm not gonna give much details because I don't see how that's helpful for me, but basically I'm gonna be a week away. I've been very excited about this trip. What I will try and do is in the hotel I will try to upload a couple of videos, maybe 2 3 while I'm away. um, it will depend also heavily on any real development. So basically, if not much is happening, I'll probably bypass that. Otherwise, I'll try to come in. Now, let's go straight to the big horse in the room, which is the bond market. Now, I find it funny that nowadays you have entire channels dedicated to talking about the global bond market, which is something that I've been saying since I've started my channel, that the bond market is by far the most important. It is the Mac Daddy of all the others. It is bigger than all the others combined. That means real estate plus stocks plus crypto plus commodities. The bond market is king. And when yields are spiking or going up quite strongly, there's basically two things may be happening. Either the expectations for growth are so massive that somehow we can tolerate higher growth, or the market, meaning all the participants, are losing trust in the ability of governments to pay off their debts. Somebody asked me about this, so I'm going to cover it now. Yields go up, bond values go down. Bond values go up, yields come down. It's very simple. Think like this. You buy a bond with a yield of 3%, and you buy that bond for $100. Now, let's say yields go to 4%. Your bond that you bought at 100 is paying 3% fixed, let's say for 10 years. But you can go into the market and buy new debt at 4%. So why would anybody buy yours at 3? Only in one condition. When you're selling it not for 100, but for 70. Although you paid 100 for it. So you see the value of the bond came down because it's yielding 3% and you can get new debt at 4. So why would people accept your bond paying 3 if they can get a new one paying 4? So the only way is if you offer a big enough discount to make it work. Same thing on the opposite side. Yields, let's say you have a bond, let's say you are back in the 80s when the 30-year interest rate of the US was 20%. 20%. Can you imagine that? And here we are all stressed out on 5%. But it's all about the magnitude of the debt. Obviously, it's not so much about the actual rate. We've had 5% rates many times in the past. The issue is we cannot have it with the current levels of debt. That not just the US. If you look at the German bonds, you look at the Australian bonds, you look at the Japanese bonds, it doesn't make a difference. It's all the same problem. There's too much debt in the system, in summary, both private and public. That's it. When I say public, I mean government related. But let's go with the same thing. Let's say your 30-year bond is paying you 25% per year in interest. And now rates are 10%. Everybody else, only if they want new debt, they can only get a new bond paying 10. But you have in your possession a bond paying 25. So obviously, although you paid 100 for it, people are willing to give you 300 for the bond. That's it. That's why when people ask me, get confused, why yields up, bonds down. That's it, because you can just get a new one, paying a higher interest. Now, obviously, the expectations for growth are not massive, but that is the reason to believe that governments will not be able to service their debts. Moody's just downgraded the US from AAA, which is not that important in my view, taking into account that the other two rating agencies, S&P and Fitch, already did it. But it's just like a little extra spice on the bond fears already. Now, am I really concerned about it? As I've said before, the bond market is the king. I will only be concerned if central banks decide that they will let the system collapse. That's it. Otherwise, the solution is very simple. Massive amounts of QE, massive amounts of the central banks buying government debt. Oh, that's going to create inflation. Not necessarily. Inflation in asset prices, sure. Inflation in consumer prices, I doubt it. Because because we already seen that for 30 years in Japan, 15 years in Europe, 10 years, 15 years in the US. It's always the same thing. By the way, Australia just got rates yesterday or today. So they all play the same game. See, the politicians change, the faces change, the parties change, but they all have this underlying issue, which is the debt, the massive debt expansion that happened, particularly between 2008 and today. And why did that happen? That happened because the economy was slowing down aggressively because of the baby boomers getting older. So in my case, the generation of my father, getting older and less productive. So the way you compensate with it is with debt expansion. But we've pretty much maxed it out. What we can do now is roll over existing debt, which is basically this rollover debt refinancing cycle is about 4 years, typically, which coincides, as you guess it, with the Bitcoin cycle or the crypto cycle. When will this change? This will change when we manage to outgrow the debt. That's it. That's the big hope of AI, robotics, and the likes. Otherwise, everything that you see today will just get worse. See, one way that you can also try to boost your productivity artificially is by increasing a lot your labor market, your share of cheap labor market. Now you start to understand the politics around immigration, both in the US and in Europe. Just import super cheap labor. By the way, give them the right to give them something and give them the right to vote, and they will vote for you forever. And you can give people the illusion of democracy. And by the way, if we don't like the elections, we may annul the result and run it again until we get the people we want. And for the future, we're going to start banning political candidates. Now, that's a little clue because you've already seen that 3 times in Europe. Romania, notice that I'm not making any kind of judgment about if this is good or bad. I'm just saying what's happening. What happened in Romania? Well, someone was winning the elections and they won the elections. Oh no, the elections are, they don't count. That's it. So we're going to run them again. Oh, our candidate won. Then everything is good. Oh, Le Pen was heading by 12% the French elections. Banned. Oh, sure, the party did some embezzlement of public funds, 7 million euros. Let's take unprecedented action and ban her. Oh, AfD in Germany being classified as extremist. so you can prepare the banning later, because they're already the number one party in terms of popularity according to the latest polls, and they were number 2 in the previous election. The US, all of a sudden they cannot secure the border at all. Millions of illegals come in. They are being shipped and sent into swing states, and one of the candidates, I think you can guess which one, was saying we should give them an accelerated path towards citizenship. Who do you think they're going to vote for? See what I mean? This is unfortunately the road we're taking. Now, if you read a little bit of history, you'll find out that governments have a big problem controlling themselves when they start to exert some levels of power. I always like to give this example, by the way. In the Soviet Union, you could vote in elections. You had elections in the Soviet Union. You could vote on the pre-approved communist members of the party. See what's happening there? You have a choice, an illusion of choice. And I fear that we may be going on that direction. I don't know if that's the case or not. What I'm trying to do is, and by the way, I think the big hope in terms of outgrowing the debt problems will be with AI, with a massive productivity growth from AI. That's the only thing that I see. And on the financial basis, I see crypto as being the fastest horse when it comes to the government's currency debasement and risk on assets going up. And this is the funny part. Because the currency gets debased, and because central banks have to print money due to all the government debt and private debt that is in the system, that means the currency is worth less. But you see that particularly in asset prices. Who owns the assets? Rich people. So now, as Main Street is struggling, the rich people are doing very well, but it's because they own assets, because they understand that their money is being devalued, so they buy stuff with the hope that their money stops being devalued so much. Property, art, Rolex, stocks, crypto, you name it, they buy it, and obviously those things go up in price, which means the inequality of rich and poor goes like this, expands. And then the government comes in and says that the reason why these people here are suffering is because of these wealthy people over here. Divide and conquer. And by the way, this is very political expedient because there's way many people on this camp than on this camp. So it's very easy to do. The issue is at some point, these people over here, if they don't like what they're hearing in their countries, they start moving to other countries. And then they take all the wealth with them. And then people over here start to figure out how hard it is to have good paying jobs if the first group here is leaving. That's it. The only thing is these people on the left side, on the rich side, they have information about what's going on. They keep very low amounts of liquidity, but they do buy a lot of assets. Now, in all of this debasement, the only hope that I see is with crypto. That's my biggest hope. And that's why I'm positioned accordingly. Maybe I'm making a huge mistake. Maybe it's not going to turn out the way that I think. I don't know. I'm willing to give it a try. And because to me, I think the trend is very clear. But unfortunately, there's nothing I can do. So what I do is, how can I become financially independent so I can choose to live somewhere on the planet in which my freedom, my economic freedom, because that's the one that really matters, political freedom is less relevant. Example, you can actually live freer in a place like Dubai than in a place like Paris. Why? Can you vote in Dubai? No. But the government will leave you alone. For most, you pay virtually no tax. They don't interfere so much with your day-to-day life, as opposed in France. You can go on the streets, wave your flags, vote for people if they allow you to vote for people you want, but then they touch everything you do in your life, and you feel the weight, the burden of the state on your back much more. So think about it. This has been true for many decades. It's nothing new here. So in that sense, that's my hope with crypto. I said in my previous video, I expect that we're gonna see a new all-time high in Bitcoin within the 20th of May, probably around 25th, 26th of May. That's my expectation around those times. So nothing has changed from my previous video. I think Bitcoin was at 100K. When I said that, I cannot take credit of it. It's simply following the M2 money supply. That's it. So somewhere between 20 and 31st of May, so basically imminently, we should see a new all-time high in Bitcoin. Ethereum is holding at 2,500. And yeah, so keen to see how the cycle will develop. I hope everything goes well, gets better, basically, across the board. There's something that has happened, nobody paid much attention. Canada has removed almost all the retaliatory tariffs from the US, which means, and they seem to be very keen to do a deal. I think their grocery inflation is like almost 4% and double of the US. So indeed, and Canada has been struggling quite a bit over the last 10 years. That's why Trudeau's approval was completely done in the toilet. So I'm very keen to see what can come out of it. And hopefully, this is more important, that we can have some peace around the globe. So in the two fronts of the Middle East, and also in Europe as well. There seems to be some good developments on that front. These things are more complex than people think. No, he wouldn't solve that in 24 hours. It's the typical exaggeration that we hear all the time from him. I don't know why people still get surprised by it, but apparently they don't learn. And so let's take it from there. By the way, I'm following the unfortunate health event of former President Biden very, very closely, because unfortunately I had family members with cancer. And I can tell you, there's no, even if it's aggressive, there's no way, in my opinion, I mean, unless an event 1 in a million happened, there is no way they didn't know about his health condition a long time ago. There's just no way. And then you see media playing cover-up. Apparently now some people knew about it, blah, blah, blah. So it's the old story. And then people get, oh my God, did the media lie to us? Yeah, the media lies to you all the time. Not just this one. On everything, pretty much. And with that, guys, thank you very much for support. I hope to have a very good, some good holidays. I just wanted to make this video a little bit different than the others. Let's see how things develop. Don't forget, like and subscribe. And I'll catch you in the next one.